look at how to add cover art for either a CD album cover or a DVD cover. So what we have here inside of iTunes is we've got the Footloose, Holding Out for a Hero here, and I've burned this particular song and it does not have a cover art here. We see just a musical note in lieu of the cover art. And then over here on our movies, we also have the Fringe Connection here that is absent cover art. So we want to add cover art for both of these items here. So what we want to do is go ahead and search for the item that we want online. So in this case, we're going to pull this from the Footloose album here, the one starring Kevin Bacon, and then the movies, we're going to pull a Fringe Connection. So I'm just going to pull on over here to Google, and I've done a search for Footloose soundtrack. And for this soundtrack, typically I like to do an image search, and I like to look for images that are going to either be large or medium. The reason being is if you have this on an iPod or a mobile device or an iPad, you're going to go small, medium. That's fine. That's no big deal. But I typically like to start with large size photographs and see if I can snag one of those, because personally I've got an Apple TV, so it's nice to have a little bit higher resolution photograph to work with in terms of that displaying on your television. Of course, this is dependent on the size, so I like to pull a little bit larger photograph. Sometimes those are difficult to find. It's easier, obviously, to find the thumbnails, but I like to search initially for large. So I found one here that looks okay. Here looks okay. So you can pull really any one of those. You won't want something like this because you'd have to go into Photoshop and crop it, and it's not a good very photograph either. It has some glare issues there. So pick one that's okay. And if you wanted to, you could go into Photoshop and make some modifications for cropping, and you could check some of my videos out for that. But in this case, this is fine. So we're just going to save image to downloads here. So we're right-clicking on the image and save image to downloads. What you don't want is to save it directly from this location, because this will only save the preview. You want to select it. Once it is selected on the Macintosh, you can save image to downloads. If you've got a PC, you can do the similar version of just save image and pick a location. I like to save to my downloads folder because I can go directly to that and apply them that way. So we'll switch back over to iTunes. And I've got the item here, so I'm going to right-click on the particular song, and I'm going to go to Get Info. I do not go to Get Album Artwork because I'm ripping them from CDs that I own, and a lot of times it's just not pulling up the necessary information and loading that into iTunes. I'm assuming iTunes Match is going to fix that somewhat, but I find this to be a lot of just worthless efforts that go through to get album art for what I want. So I'm going to go to Get Info, and then I'm going to go to the artwork. Going back here just for 1 second, the Get Album Artwork is a good one to run initially before you go back and do the ones that manually you have not found. So I would suggest that you run that once you've burned all your CDs. Go ahead and run that through your menu, but then get the ones that aren't coming up. Obviously, Get Info is the best way to do that. So click on Get Info. I've pulled down to the Artwork tab. I'm going to select Add. This is in my Downloads folder, so I just look for that particular cover art, which is right here. I've got size and dimensions here, and I'll click Open. And then I will go ahead and click OK. And now it pulls up that particular artwork. Works very similar for the movies. I would select the film I want, right-click, go to Get Info. Wait a second, because iTunes is incredibly slow. And then go to Artwork, and then go to Add in this case. Find your downloads. I've got Fringe Connection here. And typically Google will give it some really funky name here. So sometimes you just got to go through them and scroll through to find what you want. I found Fringe Connection. Great movie with Gene Hackman. Click OK, and it will populate up here. Sometimes it takes it a bit to populate, but that's not a big deal. It will just take sometimes a few seconds, and it will come right. And essentially, that is how you add cover art to your media through iTunes.